Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, community builder and podcaster, and we got a special guest on the show. From across the United States, we are friends through a community called Certified High Performance Coaches, and she is helping women in their journey, and I wanted you to meet Christina. So Christina, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into your story.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pete. So my name's Christina, and what I do is I help women all over the world actually, and I help them find those beliefs that are stopping all of us, men. I actually work with men too, but primarily women. But those beliefs underneath our actions and our behaviors that are just stopping us from doing the things that we want to do in our lives, in our relationships, our work, our connection with our children, maybe it's even with money. So those things in our patterns are things that are out there that stop us. And through hypnosis and some of the other things that I do, those are the ways that I get to kind of the root of those patterns and beliefs that stop us, things that we don't even realize are happening.
You know, I connect so much with what you're saying. I never realized how much all the thoughts that go through our head, I think it's like 12 to 60,000 thoughts. It's amazing. And that those thoughts are like old things that have happened.
Yeah.
They're how we talk to ourselves. How did you
Right.
get started in such an important part of a journey? Because I believe the mind can be very good, but you got to train it right. So how did you get started in that?
Yeah, it can be a little sneaky too.
Yes.
So, I've always found myself in a mentorship role. I worked in higher education for 30 years, but it actually was a personal journey. I had found myself in extreme corporate burnout. I was going through some personal changes, a divorce, and so on. And I decided that I needed to actually figure out some habits and things in my own life that were happening that I didn't like. Just some patterns and some beliefs and things that I thought, gosh, why do I always think that about myself? Things that weren't very positive about myself. And actually I had done very well in my life. I was very successful. I had, 2 children that were thriving and doing very well. So from the outside, everything looked really peachy, really good. I was an A student and all the things that people would look at me and say, things are going very, very well, but I didn't feel that way. So at that point, I decided I need to go and ask someone to help me figure out why I don't always feel that way. So I just got real curious. And it was then I found hypnosis, and she very, very quickly got to some things that had happened, and nothing particularly, some things were bigger than others, but I thought, wow, those are things that I have believed about myself my whole life and have really shaped how I forged relationships in the corporate world, the way I took on maybe more work than I needed to, how I became a little overachiever and perfectionist, and even how I parented, made decisions about money, really shaped who I was up until that point. And at this point, I was 50. And I thought there are women and people walking around believing things about themselves that aren't even true. And they don't need to believe those things, because it had in some ways had made my life so much harder than it needed to be. And I had also pushed away support and things that could make my life so much richer. So it was really at that point I felt, gosh, I can bring all that corporate experience, but also I can help people shed things about themselves that aren't true and make life easier. And that's really what I wanted to do.
Ooh. What do you think when I talk to people about personal growth, it's kind of almost like a foreign word. It's like, that self-awareness is so important in our journey. Why do you see in your work, where do you see the disconnect between creating our lives, and it's so apparent that everybody is consuming a lot of other stuff, which is other people's lives, whether it's TV or TikTok videos or whatever the consumption is. Where do you think the disconnect is out there, and what you've seen?
I see one of the biggest disconnects is with ourselves and our internal voice and
Mhm,
that outside validation. There's just so much reinforcement of you need someone to guide you, or that outside validation, or so much reinforcement that mm, gets us to doubt ourselves and not listen to our intuition, or that little voice, that little niggle that tells you, that's not right.
mhm,
And, whether it's through social media or something, or somebody that tells us, they made $1 million in 6 months, and you're going, wow, it's taken me a long time to even, be this successful or make a decision. And so there must be something wrong with me. So what I find when people come to me, and even my own journey, is that most of us think we have to work harder or do something or go seek
mhm,
a 5-step strategy, or go do something. And typically there's no more efforting we need to do. We typically need to find less resistance and go within. And whether that's some sort of internal voice or quietness, it's
mhm,
typically less noise and less resistance. And so most of my job is, where can I help us find less resistance so you can go within? Because we very, very often have such a strong internal compass. It's
mhm,
wonderful. And for many people, that might be their faith, it might be something else. But we have such great natural instincts, and we got to get back to that.
mm. I heard somebody share that between ages when we're born and 7, there's a lot of programming or a lot of habits that get
Mhm.
established. Do you find that some of your clients and the people you work with, those that's true, that it goes back to those real early years of our life?
Yeah, it really does. So, what's fascinating is that between the ages of birth and 7 years old, we're like little sponges, and all these little comments, and we're observing everything so much. If you think about it, we learn to walk and talk and do so many things. That's why children can learn so many languages and do so much in those early ages. Our subconscious mind is all about absorbing, 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 but we interpret things and absorb things at that age. And our subconscious mind's job at that point is only to keep us alive. It's not to help us
Mm,
thrive or be confident or any of those things. It's really only for survival. And what happens around 7 or 8 is all of that just goes into a vault and shuts. And we grow up, we become 30, 40, 50, we're these adults, but those
mhm,
beliefs at that point, they're stuck in there. And so almost all the work that I do is going back in there. And,
mm,
I'm working with an executive, people that are very successful, and we'll go back to a moment that a teacher, a third grade teacher made a comment, or someone on the playground made a comment and laughed at them for their shoes, or mom didn't pick us up on time for soccer practice. And it was really because mom was just came home from work and had to pick up a sibling or got stuck at a light. But the interpretation and the meaning was, I'm not as important. So it's only the meaning, and all these little things add up, and it's all about survival. So we're going back, and it's so wonderful because of neuroplasticity and the
mm,
ability to change the meaning through repetition and other techniques. We can go back in and find out what happened, or find out the meaning we attached, and change it and
mm,
give it a new meaning. And that's how we make such profound changes when we talk about those beliefs. And that's why sometimes as we get older, we'll say, why do I get so nervous? I know my business. I'm confident. I know what I'm doing. Why do I choke up when I have to go do this? Or why do I push the people I love away? Or why do I mismanage my money when I should know I shouldn't go do this or that? And we beat ourselves up and say, I'm just not good at that. When really it's grounded in maybe something much deeper. We just got to go figure out what that is.
mm. I realized I was always into personal growth and reading books, but I was never into meditation or journaling. And it wasn't till I couldn't do certain things like running and playing golf, which was kind of like my meditation or
Yeah.
time. And I was forced to do something different. Now I journal several times during the day. I have 20 journals in the last
Wow.
3.5 years, and I meditate. And if you would have told me that I would be a person that meditated because I have that active brain,
Yeah.
to say, you couldn't have paid me any amount of money to slow down and meditate,
And
but
meditate.
now
Yeah.
they're my two go-tos. What do you think, how has, when you mentioned burnout and then you mentioned, that transition, how did you, along with hypnosis, how long those strategy, did you do anything like journaling,
Oh,
meditating? Was
yeah.
there anything that really helped you connect with yourself?
Oh, yeah, you just named a bunch of wonderful things. So, yeah, journaling, I think I have a whole library here of journals I could go back to as well. But, creating new habits and ability to just express, and we shove so many things down. So
Mhm.
that's probably one of the most powerful tools that you can use. But yes, absolutely. Journaling, and the reason is that it's not just about writing and venting, it's about reflection and being able to see, wow, I have a little bit more anger than I thought, or I'm frustrated, and then you're able to reflect and see back and say, okay, I can actually change this. And through writing is so powerful. So one of my favorite journal prompts for everyone out there is your name, I, Pete, I, Christina, feel, and just start writing. It might just say, I feel annoyed right now. I'm bored. I don't know what to write. But after a while, you'll find that just writing it is
Mhm.
something will come out. And after something comes out, you might even add just like when, and you'll have epiphany. You'll have moments that say, oh, wow, I'm starting to feel just like when I was this age or that age. Well, isn't that interesting? What are those dots? And you'll intuitively start to connect things and have
Mhm.
those aha moments. Getting out in nature, I was raised where it was work, 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 work. And
Mhm.
anything that you do for yourself is really, I was raised to think it was pretty selfish and you shouldn't do those things and put yourself last, put everyone else first. So that was really something I had to relearn. And I don't think I'm unique. Depending on the generation, I think, luckily, I think this is changing out there,
Mhm.
due to the self-development, movement that's out there. Is, it's pretty healthy to go outside in the middle of the day and get some fresh
Yes.
air and take a walk. And this sounds simple, but I think for a lot of people, they still have to almost force themselves out to get out there and to say, you know what, it's pretty normal to take a walk in the middle of the day and stretch. We all work at home. We're stuck here now, and we have to make time to go have lunch outside or go take a break, and do the exercise. So those things were really, self time is not selfish.
Yeah.
um, Journaling, um, connections, community, having a community that were maybe not just my girlfriends, but different people, how I met you, really finding people that inspired me. That
Mhm.
was key. Because I had work friends, we have other friends, but people that were interesting that, I think now most of my closest people that I have ever met are definitely past the age of 50. I have some of my closest and dearest friends. And if you would have said that to me at that age, I would have thought, gosh, all my friends were only maybe friends I'd met through my kids.
Mhm.
But it's never too late to just to go. I would go on trips in different countries and meet different friends and people, which required I get out of my comfort zone
Mm.
and to meet new
Yes.
people and different people. And that was one of the things that really, made me stretch, and
Mhm.
it paid off.
How do you, like, you mentioned meet other people. Like, when you go into a room, what do you do to kinda connect with people that you found to be very beneficial to build in those relationships?
No, I think being curious and asking people, about themselves and
Mhm.
and how you can support them, and really just asking them to tell you about themselves. I find that I'm very fascinated and interested in people, but people are shocked when you really are genuinely authentic and
Mhm.
care, and they want to hear your story. But I think if you go in with forced questions, then it isn't authentic. So what do you really want to know about? Do you really want to know about them, or do you really just want to, what do you really want to know about? And going with that, if you are, whatever your business is or whatever you're interested in, really sit with, is that really interesting to me, or did somebody tell me in a networking group I need to ask that? And
Mm.
so I think that's really important, is sit with it and say, yeah, no, that doesn't feel right. Because I know I've been trained, like the best of us, to ask certain things and it feels fake and phony. So be authentic. And for
Mhm.
me, it's always like, what, tell me about you. And, how can I support you, and vice versa. So
That
being
makes
authentic.
Yeah. You hear the word hypnosis, and it kinda has a word in your mind, like it's foo-foo, and it's like so how do you dispel a kind of a word that's been out there for years?
Yeah, with the
You know Yeah, exactly. So when people hear that, what are they thinking of, and how do you get them to overcome something that may have happened 25 years ago when they saw one TV show and
oh,
the
sure.
person was doing this?
Yeah, I don't blame you. So don't watch Netflix and think that's what it is. Um, yeah, no one would want to sign up to lose control. So the first thing I have to say is, the state that you go in hypnosis is the most natural state. We go into a certain brainwave state, but it's where we go every night when we go to sleep, or kind of like a dreamlike state. So this isn't a trance like robotic state that you can't get out of. It's a very natural state, and you don't lose control. You're actually gaining control. So when we talk about those beliefs, when you have beliefs that you misinterpreted by a third grade teacher that's now controlling your life,
Mhm.
that's you losing control. And so we want to go in and find out what those are and set it straight so you can get control back. So hypnosis is not about losing control. It's finding out what is the mystery about why some of these things that you do in your life that you don't like. So let's
Yeah.
go find the pattern so we can get you your control back. And so it's a very natural state. And actually, I don't think people realize we talk the whole time. We're chatting the whole time. You hear the dog bark, you hear the doorbell ring, you're very aware. And I
Mm.
think that surprises people.
Yeah, I totally, from what I understand, and what, because a good friend of mine does what you do, but it does with individuals. I think you spend more time with companies and with professionals. Is that
Mm,
correct?
and individuals, we do it individually, but yeah, I'll do some groups, yes.
I want to go back to control because I had an interesting conversation with a person. He's a stroke survivor and
Mm,
he's 7.5 years out. And I got a Tesla about 90 days, 120 days ago, and it's self-driving. So
mm,
I've been able to get around, and it blew my mind the first time I rented a Cybertruck to get around to family, my granddaughters, and I had to overcome the fact that, I had to trust it, that it was gonna go where it was
oh,
intended to go.
that's a
But
good
once I
analogy, yeah.
did, I said, "This is the most amazing thing." But everybody that I'll let drive it, they'll say, "I don't know if I can let go of my control of something." So, is it kind of like control is our safety net that we hang on to, but it's not really, it holds us back. So
It sure
where do
does,
you find yourself
yeah.
when people say control? That where does it come from, and how do you get them through that mindset of
Yeah, that is a
the
great
world's
analogy.
out of control and we can't
Yeah, yeah,
overthink
yeah,
it?
I'm gonna steal that one. So that's a great example. You know, it's all about feeling safe, and we need to feel it's our primal, our it's so primal to need to feel safe. And so it's a visceral need to feel safe. So, even I'll use anxiety, for example.
Mhm,
Typically, we go back to the root cause of anxiety. It's almost always going to be that anxiety is protecting the client or the person I'm working with from something it believes isn't, that
mm,
the anxiety is doing them a big favor by keeping them from doing something. It believes it's a big plus. Of course, it's not. It's usually very debilitating. But to keep them from going out and doing something and giving them a panic attack, it's actually is stopping them cold turkey from doing something. So if we just
mhm,
go find out what that is, we can then say, but you are safe, you are safe. So we have to kind of reverse and say, that's actually not the best way to make you feel safe, because you actually are safe now. We're not in that circumstance anymore. So it is visceral. And, you know, it's really important I build a strong rapport with every client because everyone's different. And, I don't typically say, hi, Pete, nice to meet you. Let's go do hypnotherapy right now. We typically have to talk a little bit and maybe even have one or two sessions first. I might have
mhm,
you listen to something to relax you, a couple for even a week before you go to bed a little bit, get used to my voice. Some people have a little bit more anxiety than others, and I'll be able to tune into that and figure out what your needs are before.
mhm.
But, I have clients that are even 8 years old, and where, cute little 8-year-old girls doing practically gymnastics while I do hypnosis, and she's can do it. And other people who have more anxiety, and we figure out a way to navigate and do it because everyone's unique and special. So we navigate it together.
Yeah, that I love that. I had a therapist, and I've known him for a couple years, and when he was on and he actually spoke at my live event, he mentioned this, that therapy is like a relationship.
Yeah.
We all crave relationships, and if you go in with it, and I always went in with the dark room and sitting on the couch, and I just
Yeah.
totally didn't like that. But was when I paid for re therapy and I trusted the person, I got such incredible outcomes.
Right.
And it's like, so when he said it's a relationship that I have with my client that helps them, because, being a trained therapist, you're
Sure.
trained to help people. But I think we, in our minds, think of that old, room with dark and
Oh, absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it's like we say, no, I can't do that because that's weird.
Oh, right, right. I've even had someone say, "Can I be in the room when you do hypnosis on my spouse because I wanna make sure you don't, do anything that, you're not gonna make them do anything." I'm like, "Well, there has to be trust here." So, I'm not gonna make make them act like a chicken. It's not a Vegas show. Yeah.
What do you think? Because AI's been going for a few years, and you're hearing all kinds of people that. How are you using it to help you? Have you found it to be a tool that's
Yeah.
helped you in your work?
Yeah, I have. So, one of the most impactful things with hypnosis is the audio that I create after every session. So once we get to the root of the behavior that we want to change, so let's say that someone has an issue perhaps with relationships and wanting to connect more, or at work people aren't trusting, and they're wanting to have their team trust them more. So we get to the very root of it. I'll make them a custom audio, and
Mhm,
the subconscious mind responds to very powerful descriptive words that
mhm,
resonate with you, with the client, not me. So you don't want to hear what I have to say is, your team's going to trust you. So I really have to figure out what resonates with that client. So I'll use AI to say, this is what the client tells me would be really great for them to experience in their office or at
mhm,
home. And these are the words that they've used with me. give me more of these really descriptive words, because the more I can give their imagination to
Mhm.
imagine and really feel, the more they're going to be present and the more their subconscious will really respond to that. So really powerful descriptive words and repetitively over and over and over. And they have to listen to that audio at least 30 to 45 days every day. It's about 20 minutes. They can
Mhm.
even fall asleep, but that's how we rewire with
Mm,
neuroplasticity, and it just becomes their new truth. But
yeah.
that's how I use AI. I'll say, "Oh, that's a word I hadn't thought of." So,
That is so good. Yeah, because I will find sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, they go, I don't want to, that's going to do this. They'll have some kind of sound bite that they
yeah.
heard, and it just, they run from it instead of testing it and playing with it and
Yeah.
figuring out how it can work. So if you had to mentor a 20-year-old Christina,
Mm.
what would you tell her based on what you know today?
Well, that's a great question. I would tell her that trust the process, that every experience you have is leading you somewhere beautiful and great. Just
Mm,
trust. I think when you're young, you don't realize how everything builds, right? Everything
mhm,
builds and takes you on your journey. And I was quite impatient probably at 20 to just keep climbing the ladder. But
yeah,
um, looking back, it's like, I was right where I needed to be.
mm. What kind of questions do you ask Christina to kind of that serve a future and a better self? Do you have a routine? Do you have something that you're consistently doing to kind of get better answers from yourself or discover more?
For me, I wanna make sure that I am staying on track with my why. So,
Mhm,
which is this keeping me connected and grounded with the time I wanna have with my family? I mean, I
mhm,
changed careers at 50 and to start my own business, so I'm very passionate about it, but I also wanna make sure I have time with my husband and with my adult children and hopefully soon grandchildren. I know you have a lot of grandchildren.
mhm,
So, I can get very focused with work, but I'll constantly say, hold on, is this creating the space that I want
mm,
for me too? So if I, start this podcast, will I also have the space I want for me? Because that keeps me very happy with my clients. And if I don't have the space for the people that are the most important to me, I won't be happy over here too. And
mm.
that was something I wasn't balanced with in the past. And I'm always asking and always making those little checkpoints. And, you know, uh, am I always, you know, my purpose is to bring light and connect people to their inner wisdom. And
Mhm.
so I'm just always asking, is this doing that? Is
Mm.
this always doing that with women and people, or have I geared off of that? And sometimes I do gear off and I need to just kind of bring it back.
That is so good. How do you stay focused with all the distractions that are out?
Mm.
Or is there some things that have honored that clarity and focus in your daily life?
I have a big family, and so, I think I get lucky just when I am working too much, I'll get a knock on the door, and I live across the street from my niece and nephew's elementary school, and I'll get the knock and, "Auntie, we want snacks." So, I think
Yeah,
family does that groundedness, and
yeah.
family and just being present with the things keep going back to the things that are the most important.
Mhm,
And, just I live by the beach and enjoying where I live and the life that I've created, which is really quite simple now. I like to be with my friends and my family
mhm.
and where I live, and, you know, trying to remember those are very important things.
Yeah, that is awesome. What do you think when you if you can think back when you went from corporate America to doing your own thing. What was that toughest thing? Because we get that paycheck every Friday or whatever, every 2 weeks, and it's coming in whether we do anything. But when we move into that different arena of being your self-employed entrepreneur, it's a really difficult transition for people to get. How did you do in that
Yeah.
bridge to doing what you're doing now?
It is difficult. Well, I had money saved up. So, you have money saved up. I had finances saved up. But, you take a leap of faith and you trust that you if you don't have the skills, you're going to figure it out. And you have the resources and your desire, there's a voice inside that just says, I want this so much. You're realistic, you have finances and you have some, smart decisions that you're making.
Mhm.
But also, I don't think I ever, maybe a little naivety, but also if I don't know how to do it, you can figure it out, or you're going to go ask someone or meet someone that's going to help you.
Mhm.
And making sure that I was always in rooms with people that could help me figure it out.
Mhm.
It's how I met you, and it's how I'm always going to put myself in those rooms, people that are very inspirational. Whenever I go to one of our meetings with high performers and high performance coaching or any of the other organizations that I'm in, it just blows my mind how amazing and motivating those people are, and they teach me every single day. And it's like, wow, I got so much more to learn, and that just keeps me going.
Ooh, that's good. You mentioned earlier curiosity. Where do you think that muscle started to grow in your curiosity journey? Was that
Mm.
as a little girl? Was it after in corporate? Where did you see the most growth in that area?
I was raised by a single mother, and my father, both of them worked very, very hard. I'm the oldest of four children.
Mhm.
And so, you know, figuring things out and working hard and, you know, I guess putting your head down and making things work. That was just something I always witnessed.
Mhm.
My parents always, my dad had his own businesses. And so I watched that. And
Mhm.
I watched my mom also climb the ladder at Discover Card. She did for 30 years after, barely a high school education, and moving her way up and winning all
Mhm.
kinds of awards. And really just watching her learn, step by step by step. So I think I was pretty lucky to see pretty hardworking parents.
Hmm. I have one more. I mean, I have two more questions, but I want just what are you most excited about in the future? If you could share with us.
Yeah, I'm most excited about, I want to get out more in my community and
Mhm.
really, I've done so many things with people online and all over the world. And lately I'm just really excited to be more local and meet more people here and do more things here in my community, and do more groups and like hug and touch people and talk to them. And I want to write a book, and I've done an anthology and a chapter in a book, but
Mhm.
I want to write a book and share more. And I've been on a lot of podcasts. I want to have a podcast and do things like you, Pete, and just share more and talk more, but really spread myself more in my community.
Hmm. That is so good. Tell our viewers, like, how can they get a hold of Christina? What would they need to do to get more of Christina?
So on my website, ChristinaLWoods.com, but I actually have a free community every week. I do a little hypnosis and healing
Mhm.
every Thursday at 4 o'clock, and that is called the Reset Room.
Mhm.
And it's fun. I do like I said, 40 minutes every week. So it's Christina L. Woods / the Reset Room. You can join there. And I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn and everywhere you can find me as well.
Awesome. And let me see if it points right. We'll point right to that QR code there. And that if you scan that, you'll go to Christina's website and you'll be able, can you get to the reset room from your website?
Yes, it says free weekly reset right up top, free weekly reset.
Making it easy. I love it. Love it. So what would be the one thing that you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
You have the answers inside of you. Trust that you do. You might not feel like you do, but it's not that hard to tap inside. You might need a little guidance, but you can tap inside and find the answer. So if you feel blocked or stuck, we can get that unblocked and unstuck. You have the answers and the wisdom inside. You really do.
Awesome. Christina, I want to thank you for being a guest and being able to be available to share with our community. Thank you so much for your time and being on our show.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
My pleasure.